guys, I hope your week is going well. So I have some Paula'S Choice sunscreens to review for you guys today. I know you all love Paula'S Choice and frequently ask me to review more Paula'S Choice products. And personally, I have used them. Not only do I use them currently, but I've used them long before I was on YouTube, particularly the sunscreens. I am always drawn to the brand because of their attention and focus on sun protection. They recognize how important that is for skin health and for skin care. The products, as you guys know, are cruelty-free, fragrance-free, and essential oil-free. And I believe they're just more widely available than some of the other brands that I review. In terms of, I think you can get them in Canada, as well as Australia and perhaps New Zealand. Correct me if I'm wrong. So anyways, getting into some of the sunscreens. I'll just start out with the mineral sunscreens that I personally have used and tried. First up is a Calm Minerals SPF 30. I'll put a photograph of it here. This is a zinc titanium dioxide physical sunscreen. Wonderful choice for people with sensitive skin, rosacea prone skin. Their rosacea or stinging irritation can often be precipitated by chemical sunscreens. So best to choose a mineral sunscreen, and this would be a good choice. The vehicle, meaning the inactive ingredients in the product, are really nicely formulated to be soothing to the skin. It contains ceramides, oat extract, and soybean sterols, all of which are calming, anti-inflammatory, and helpful for skin barrier restoration. Oats in particular are a wonderful ingredient, not only for their humectant properties, but also for their skin conditioning properties. I have a video talking about colloidal oatmeal and oats in skincare, so check that out. But wonderful ingredient. Again, fragrance-free. In terms of the aesthetics of this particular sunscreen, because it is a mineral sunscreen, there is a cast. I would say in terms of mineral sunscreens though, the cast is really nice. Very, very minimal. On my skin, it is what I rate a 1. A cast of a 1, I have a cast rating, by the way, of 1 to 5. 5 is like a, white paint on your face, on my face, and a 1 is more of putting it on and a slight cast that fades, but then up close you can kind of see some sheer white on my skin. But in other words, I can get away walking around with a 1 cast. Nobody really notices. But if you are a darker skin type, a 1 cast may still be a little noticeable on you and something that you're not pleased with. But I find this to be pretty tolerable, a 1 cast, and it dries matte. It's not it doesn't give a real dewy look or a shiny look. It's not super emollient. So it's wonderful for kind of hot, humid weather. And at the same time, the inactive ingredients are nice and moisturizing. So overall the product is not excessively drying either. So it's really nice in that sense. However, as far as a sunscreen and sun protection, I wouldn't really classify this as a sunscreen that you could really rely on days where you are outdoors a lot, where you are commuting maybe in your car, you're running errands, you're going through parking lots, because it's a pretty low SPF. 30, while good, is not quite enough in my opinion, because the way people put sunscreens on, they just don't put them on heavy-handedly enough to get to the SPF on the bottle, unfortunately. So you end up actually at a third of the SPF that's on the label, just based on how consumers apply sunscreen. So it suffers that limitation, and it's not water resistant. So water resistant sunscreens are nice in that in between the periods of time where you should be reapplying the sunscreen, because they are water resistant, it gives you just a little bit more insurance that stuff is not rubbing off or sweating off as easily. It's just a little hardier, if you will. And for places like Houston, where I live, where it's very humid, we're sweating a lot, that's nice. That's a nice feature to have. So this is not that way. So to me, this product is more of an everyday moisturizer with sunscreen in it, which is fine. But again, if you're going to be outdoors for a prolonged period of time, probably not enough. The other limitation of this one, and actually all of the sunscreens to be honest, is the bottles are kind of small, and based on how much you're going to need to get to the SPF on the label, and with reapplying it, I go through Paula'S Choice sunscreens in a couple of weeks. So they're actually pretty expensive. So, you know, that makes them not as ideal. But I do really love the Calm Mineral Moisture SPF 30. I think overall it's a great moisturizer with SPF. I wish Paula'S Choice would come out with an SPF 50 mineral sunscreen. I really think that's what they should focus on next in terms of their product lineup. Something that would be competitive with Color Science Mineral Face Shield or the Exuviance mineral sunscreen that I use. Those higher SPF 50 tinted sunscreens, or the sunscreens like Coats offers, for example, much higher SPF, and that nice aesthetic of the formulation of the mineral particles that leaves a more desirable, more tolerable, more acceptable cast for people. I really would like to see Paula'S Choice go in that direction with the sunscreens. So moving on to the next mineral sunscreen that is SPF 30 but is tinted, is one that I know is very popular, and personally I love it. It actually was the first sunscreen that I ever used from Paula'S Choice, and I think I have an older bottle. I think they've recently changed the product packaging, but it's the same sunscreen. This product, unlike the Calm moisturizer, is only zinc, no titanium dioxide. Zinc by itself gives great UVB coverage, UVA1 and UVA2, but when mineral sunscreens blend in titanium dioxide, they can kind of play around with the ratios a little bit more to yield a broad spectrum SPF with maybe less of a cast. That being said, this particular product is tinted, so it kind of camouflages some of that. Very easy to tolerate, very comfortable. Again, like all Paula'S Choice products, fragrance free. This is a mineral sunscreen, so very friendly for people with rosacea and sensitive skin. This one's pretty moisturizing and therefore great for dry skin. However, the vehicle is nice in that it is, I won't say matte, but it's really suitable also for oily skin types. Like there's no excessive emolliency to this that kind of leaves that shiny glowiness. And for people with oily skin, that's not usually desirable. Having that excess luminosity, shine on top of inherently shiny skin is not desirable. This sunscreen does not do that. However, I find that the tint with this, you know, it's one of those ambiguous terms, universal tint, I think they claim. Maybe they don't claim that, but this is natural tint, ideal for all skin tones. I would disagree with that. Sheer natural tint, ideal for all skin tones. So if you are a darker skin type, I think you will find that this is one of those tinted sunscreens that when you put it on, there's kind of a chalky, almost beigey whitewash appearance to the skin that you're not going to get along with. So it's not quite universal. It's sort of trading white with kind of taupe. It still doesn't go well with your skin. If you're a fair skin type though, again, it's not noticeable whatsoever. So I would disagree that this is good for all skin tones. I think if you're a much darker skin type, you're going to find that this is not universal. You know, it's one of those universal skin tones, but it's really not. Comment below though on your experience using it, because everyone differs. This product's a little pricey in my opinion, but I think it goes over incredibly well. Another thing about Paula'S Choice sunscreens, most of them, if not all of them, they have varying amounts of different or combinations of antioxidants. Antioxidants in sunscreens are put in there with the idea that they're going to scavenge free radicals that are generated upon exposure to UV and as a result of infrared radiation, so a different type of insult to the skin. Those free radicals also contribute to aging of the skin, damage of collagen in the skin, and set the stage also probably for skin cancers. And we don't have an active sunscreen ingredient that truly protects from that. And the idea behind putting antioxidants in sunscreens is that they would mop up some of that free radical damage. However, in reality, sunscreens with antioxidants have been examined independently in lab-based studies and shown to not actually be functional as antioxidants, to have very limited free radical scavenging ability, simply because antioxidants are very unstable, and getting them in product formulation so that they're actually functional is really, really a challenge to manufacturers, and by and large, they just don't work swimmingly. Furthermore, when they are put into sunscreens, they work even less, they have even less opportunity to work, because sunscreens, the way that they are formulated is kind of to make a film on your skin, and that kind of film actually prevents the antioxidants from really even getting into the skin where they're needed. So they're not super effective, and I'm telling you guys this, not because they're bad ingredients or things that you should avoid, but so that you realize that a lot of the price point of what you're paying for a sunscreen is those ingredients that are sometimes costly to add and can kind of give the product more consumer appeal, but in reality, not super effective ingredients. In terms of things that can damage your skin in addition to UV and infrared, blue light, visible light, specifically blue light, can drive hyperpigmentation. The dosage of visible light that we get from the sun is pretty large. I mean, it's much greater than what you get from a tablet or some of these electronic devices that people are, fearful for. Visible light from the sun is really a much bigger dose. And visible light in the wavelengths, particularly of blue light, meaning stuff that you see, with your eyes, that blue light can contribute to post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation persistence, as well as melasma. So if you're someone with a darker skin type, those are conditions that you tend to be plagued with more so than fairer skin types. I'm telling you this because this particular sunscreen has an ingredient, iron oxides, in it. Iron oxides, titanium dioxide, and zinc oxide are 3 ingredients that can protect against blue light, can block some of that. And so this is a phenomenal sunscreen for people with melasma and hyperpigmentation. I just wish it were a higher SPF, like the Color Science Mineral Shield that I use, or the Exuviance one. Those are much higher SPFs, which are going to give people really a much better layer of protection against both that visible light as well as obviously ultraviolet radiation. So, I wish Paula'S Choice could amp this up a little bit in terms of getting it to SPF 50. It is a little on the chalky side, and it has kind of a strange odor, which I don't mind strange odors in fragrance-free products. Like, I'm fine with that. It kind of smells a little bit like craft paint to me, but I'm fine with that so long as it doesn't smell like flowers or fragrance. So that's great. I already reviewed for you guys the other Minerals sunscreen that I've tried, the Essential Glow Moisturizer Broad Spectrum SPF 30 with kiwi and licorice. Licorice root, to remind you, is anti-inflammatory, great for redness, and can also be helpful for hyperpigmentation. It contains compounds called glabridins and Rakutens, which are compounds that can kind of disrupt how pigment is transferred around to the skin and lead to hyperpigmentation. This one is really gentle, but unlike the Calm Mineral sunscreen, this has much more of an emollient finish to it, so it's much shinier. But the cast on this is really nice. It's a 1, but maybe like a 0.8, whereas the Calm Mineral SPF 30 is a 1. This one's a little bit better, and I think it's because it's more emollient, so you have a little bit of shine to kind of distract your eyes maybe from the cast a little bit. But the cast on this is really nice. It's just very emollient, and again, only SPF 30. Check out my video reviewing the entire Defense line, and I go into more detail about this one. So those are the mineral sunscreens that I've used from Paula'S Choice. Now, the SPF 50 sunscreen that is new to me, recently started trying it out and it's great, is her new water-resistant SPF 50. This is called the Youth Extending Daily Hydrating Fluid. This is a wonderful chemical sunscreen. So chemical sunscreen, we're transitioning away from mineral sunscreens into chemical sunscreens. So for people with sensitive skin and rosacea, chemical sunscreens can be tricky and twitchy for you. Hard to predict. Chemical sunscreens also, unlike mineral sunscreens, are more likely to sting and burn around the eyes. This particular SPF 50 by Paula'S Choice, the Youth Extending Daily Hydrating Fluid, however, is really nice, very lightweight. It's a liquid vehicle, so it goes on very smoothly. It's wonderful if you have oily prone, acne prone skin. It has a matte finish to it, and because it's a chemical sunscreen, there's zero cast with this. There's zero cast whatsoever. So this is a matte, no cast chemical sunscreen. So people with oily prone skin will probably enjoy this. People with a darker skin type will appreciate no cast. But this is a chemical sunscreen, so in addition to being something that might sting or irritate people with sensitive rosacea prone skin, this also suffers limitation, which I've talked about in most videos, in that unlike mineral sunscreens, the protection that you get from a chemical sunscreen is it starts to decline after you apply it. And so while the protection that you get from a mineral sunscreen stays intact so long as the sunscreen isn't being wiped off and removed, which it inevitably will be, but with chemical sunscreens, not only do you start losing protection from it being wiped off and removed from just day-to-day movement and sweat, but you also start to lose some of the protection from the filters because they degrade, specifically avobenzone. Avobenzone is the filter in the US sunscreens that protects against UVA, the type of UV that penetrates very deeply into the skin and ages the skin, and also contributes to persistent hyperpigmentation and skin cancer formation. So you start to lose that with chemical sunscreens pretty readily, as opposed to mineral sunscreens where you only start losing it as the sunscreen is being wiped off. So there's that limitation. Now, I mentioned that chemical sunscreens tend to sting more, particularly around the eyes. I will note that this chemical sunscreen does not contain the filter oxybenzone. Oxybenzone is one of the filters that tends to be the most irritating, tends to sting the most, depending on the concentration. Even I can't tolerate it around my eyes, and this does not sting around the eyes. That being said, it doesn't sting around my eyes. I'm pretty tough, but I think that this would be a good one to consider if you like chemical sunscreens but are seeking one that is low sting. This is a good one, but can't guarantee that it's not going to sting somebody, so do know that. But I really have enjoyed this one. I just wish that it were a little bit bigger bottle. You go through this pretty quickly. In terms of the antioxidants, this has green tea in it, which is not only has it been shown to be helpful potentially as a free radical scavenging ingredient, but it also has been shown to be helpful for diminishing the appearance of pores and to be anti-inflammatory, anti-redness. The last one that I will chat about is a new one to me, is Paula'S Choice Smoothing Primer Serum. You guys know I hate the word serum, it's so ambiguous. But this product is really nice aesthetically. It is a chemical sunscreen again, so if you have sensitive skin, be aware of that. But like the daily hydrating fluid, the youth extending fluid, this one doesn't have oxybenzone in it either. This particular product is really nice for people. I think it's called a primer because it kind of appeals to that desire to use some kind of a moisturizer, conditioning agent to make the skin smooth before applying makeup. And you will definitely get that with this. It is zero cast, so I'll just squeeze a little out here. Zero cast, and it has this velvety finish to it. So yeah, zero cast, comes out completely clear, colorless, no tint, no cast whatsoever. Really nice. All right, so this has a great finish to it for putting on your face, allowing it to set up, allowing it to dry, and then putting your makeup on over it. If you come on over it with a mineral powder, for example, that has SPF in it, that's even better. You kind of are mambo comboing your sunscreen with some more sun protective cosmetics on top of it. So that's a great approach, but a really nice consistency for makeup. I think the consistency and the vehicle formulation of this one makes it worth the price point. It is identical in consistency and what it achieves as far as finish and look and zero cast to Dr. Murad's Invisibler SPF 30. Except, unlike Dr. Murad's Invisablur, Paula'S Choice does not add fragrance. So if you have ever used the Murad Invisablur, and you liked that one, I would encourage you to use the Paula'S Choice one instead. It's free of fragrance and exact same consistency and vehicle that you'll get with the Invisablur. That kind of velvety texture that, you know, it markets itself as blurring pores, but really it just softens the skin cells, helps them lie down flat. It doesn't make the skin surrounding the pores look so heaped up and, you know, kind of amplify the appearance of pores, which can happen. So this has a really nice, you know, aesthetic finish for makeup, and it's identical to the Dr. Murad's Invisablur. I don't currently have that, but probably 2 or 3 years ago I was given a sample of that at a meeting, and I actually tried it out myself, and I was like taken aback by the consistency. I thought it was really unique and really novel, and then I found out it had fragrance in it, so I stopped using it. And this is a dupe for that. Much better, no fragrance. Also, the exact same consistency as a Fresiderm Second Skin. I have this here. This is a sunscreen that I don't think I've ever talked about, but a fair number of you sometimes ask me about it. It is a Greek brand, and this has, again, the identical texture. Identical texture, identical, you know, it's a little bit thicker, but goes on with that feel of smooth. It's like velvet, just like the name implies. It leaves your skin feeling a little like velvet and smooth and soft and ready to go for makeup application. See that? Zero cast whatsoever. Look identical, feel identical. So I happen to have the Fresiderm SPF 30, but Fresiderm also makes, I hope I'm saying that right, it also makes SPF 50, so even better. And unlike Paula'S Choice, unfortunately, Fresiderm, because it is a Greek sunscreen, they have filters in the chemicals. The chemical sunscreen ingredients are much better than what we can offer here in the United States. They are more durable, more stable, and much better chemical filters than the Paula'S Choice one, and offers that same wonderful velvety skin finish. And I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's actually pretty affordable too. So this would be much better, but it gives that same consistency. You can't buy this in the States. You can buy it on Amazon UK. A viewer sent this to me, by the way. But you can buy it on Amazon UK and pay the duties to have it shipped to the US. That gets expensive. And as far as the smoothing primer serum, the Fresiderm and the Invisablur by Dr. Murad, what gives it that consistency, I think, although, you know, I'm not a cosmetic chemist or anything, is an ingredient called isododecane. It's always listed on these products that have this kind of finish. Typically as a first or second ingredient. I believe that's what it is. It's a skin conditioning agent, and I think that's what gives it this nice velvety consistency that makes it very amenable to makeup application. Not a comedogenic ingredient, nothing that you should be worried about, even though it's marketed as something, these products are marketed as kind of blurring pores. It's not because it's pore filling, it's really just in their emollient properties and how they help smooth down the surrounding skin cells. And it really makes for a very nice aesthetic in terms of the vehicle, and offers the makeup wearer something really nice to go on over, to put on and then, you know, apply makeup and whatnot. All right, so those are the face sunscreens. Obviously there are a ton, you know, she's a lot more that I have not reviewed for you guys, but those are the ones that I've tried, so, you know, I feel a little bit more comfortable speaking about as far as the finish and whatnot. But I've also tried her Lip Screen Broad Spectrum SPF 50. This is a lip sunscreen, and I want to emphasize that you do need a separate sunscreen for your lips. Don't just put the sunscreen that you use on your face and body on your lips. I mean, you can do that, but it just doesn't set up as well. It doesn't last as well on the lips. Paula'S Choice lip sunscreen is SPF 50, so that's great, nice and high. It is a chemical sunscreen, which, like on the skin of the face and the body, can be irritating to some people more so than others. Always hard to predict that, but people with really sensitive skin, people with perioral dermatitis, you know, that's a situation where you may want to avoid a lip chemical sunscreen. It could potentially aggravate that. So there's that, but you know, chemical sunscreens on the lips are tolerated by many people just fine and are a good choice to consider. But outside of the chemical filters, which potentially can be a little drying, the lip screen itself is also formulated with shea butter, which again, I have a video talking about shea butter and why it's a great ingredient in terms of it's a natural plant oil that is both occlusive, emollient, so really a great ingredient in moisturizers, and you'll frequently find it there. It also has jojoba oil in it, which is very stable plant-based oil. However, it does have olive oil in it, and I've talked about this in some of my other videos. Olive oil has always been popular in skincare, and in terms of people in Europe in particular. I think there's more of a tradition of using olive oil on babies as a moisturizer. They actually did a study a while ago looking at olive oil and showed that actually there was increased transepidermal water loss, aka dryness, with the use of olive oil as a standalone moisturizer. So it can lead to a little bit more dryness, a little bit more irritation. My preference as a lip SPF is the Vanity Cream SPF. I'll list it down below. It is a mineral SPF and it doesn't contain those ingredients, so it would probably be a better choice to consider if you're sensitive. So again, Paula'S Choice, love these sunscreens, don't have any issue with them. I think they're great. I just wish their price point were a little lower. And I'd like to see more SPF 50 sunscreens. I'd like to see mineral SPF 50 sunscreens that can compete with Color Science or Ulta. But if you do buy these products online, don't forget to download the ebates browser extension to get yourself a cashback rebate. Ebates, if you're not familiar, is the browser extension that I use for shopping online. I get so much cash back from purchases that I make online, and once you download the browser extension, I'll list it down below, but once you download the browser extension, you don't have to think about it. It does it automatically for you. But comment below on if you use any of these, if you like them, which ones are your favorite. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.